When a natural disaster occurs, it has the ability to turn everyone's lives upside down. Beyond the panic, havoc, and the tragedies, we've started to learn a little bit more about the strange occurrences that go down when a hurricane hits. If this is your first time visiting our channel, don't forget to subscribe and please give this video a big thumbs up. Hurricane names. Have you ever wondered how they came up with hurricane names such as Katrina, Ike, and Harvey? Well, these days there's a naming convention in place that makes choosing a name pretty simple. But back in the 1800s, a man named Clement Rag gave names to the weather system based on his own pettiness. The meteorologist started off by naming weather storms based on Greek and Tahitian goddesses. However, some politicians and public figures began poking fun at Clement because they believed he thought way too highly of himself. Clement was offended and he fought back by naming storms after the people who were mocking him. Edmund Barton, the former Prime Minister of Australia, was one of the unlucky men who had a storm named after him. Clement thought it would be super funny to send out weather reports that said Hurricane Edmund Barton was wandering aimlessly about the Pacific. Clement's way of naming didn't really catch on though, and it wasn't until the 60s when storms were given names again. But many people were upset that all the storms were named after women. Supposedly, meteorologists chose feminine names because they believed storms had a lot of female characteristics, such as unpredictability, for example. After a lot of outrage from women's rights activists, the naming convention was finally changed to include both masculine and feminine names. Shots fired. When Hurricane Irma threatened to wreak havoc in the state of Florida in September 2017, the residents in her path became desperate to keep themselves safe. Instead of waiting things out and taking cover in a safe place, some people decided to take matters into their own hands to make the hurricane change its path. A Facebook event was created and it invited people to shoot Irma before she could get to them first. Although it was presumably a joke, more than 80,000 people joined in on the event. People shared the page with their friends and followers, and people actually discussed taking their weapons and shooting it into the storm to see if it would make the hurricane turn away from Florida. The threats to shoot Hurricane Irma became so severe, law enforcement officers in Pasco County were forced to issue a stern warning that said, "Do not shoot weapons at Irma." Hurling weapons and firing shots at a hurricane won't solve anything at all. In fact, it can make things even worse. What goes up must come down, and bullets shot into the air could potentially harm an innocent bystander. If you think this is the craziest thing that happened during a hurricane, you ain't seen nothing yet. Keep watching to see the other weird things that have gone on during natural disasters. Voodoo disappeared. In the early morning of August 29, 2005, Hurricane Katrina struck the Gulf in the United States and caused catastrophic damages to hundreds of thousands of people in Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama. The most devastating damage and loss of lives occurred in the city of New Orleans. By the time the storm struck, many of the city's unstable levees gave way, causing floods to completely submerge some of the towns and low-lying areas. Those who couldn't get rescued sadly drowned in the floodwaters. New Orleans was the home to 2,500 to 3,000 voodoo practitioners. Many of them had their very own shops set up in the city where they would perform their rituals, hold services, and sell various trinkets. But after the storm, it was estimated that only 350 to 400 voodoo practitioners were left. Some of them evacuated, left the city, and never looked back, while others lost their lives during the devastating storm. Many of the beautiful voodoo shops that lined the tiny streets of the city were destroyed, and owners were forced to go out of business because of flood damage. After hundreds of years of practice, the entire voodoo religion and those who practice it were completely wiped out in the blink of an eye. New Orleans and Haitian voodoo practitioners in the city are now attempting to revive the practice and rebuild its presence within the community. The Sahara Desert. Most people know what a hurricane is, but they have no idea where these deadly storms come from. Although they usually make landfall off the coast of the Gulf of Mexico, the Atlantic, and the Eastern Pacific Ocean, they actually originate in a completely different region of the world. Well, these wet storms actually come from the very dry and super hot Sahara Desert. This massive desert located on the continent of Africa plays a major role in the development of hurricanes. When easterly winds are generated from the Sahara in northern Africa, they combine with cool, wet weather surrounding the Gulf of Guinea in West Africa. Together, they produce high-altitude winds called the African Easterly Jet. These unstable winds create waves off the West African coast, and when those waves have enough moisture, they form clusters of thunderstorms. When this happens, a tropical cyclone may form as the weather moves across the Atlantic Ocean. These conditions happen every 2 to 3 days throughout the year, but during the summer and early fall, they increase in number. Not all hurricanes are formed in this region, but the ones that have had a severe severe impact on the USA just so happened to have originated there. So the next time a hurricane is threatening to do damage in America, there's a pretty high chance that it can all be blamed on the Sahara Desert. Storm chasers. There are usually three groups of people when a hurricane hits. There's one group that packs up and evacuates the area right away. There's another group who takes cover in their homes or a shelter and hope for the best. And then there's a group of people who walk right into the eye of the storm. Storm chasers get a rush out of following the paths of hurricanes, and they love to share their experiences on the internet. These crazy yet brave people don't think twice about running straight into a storm's high winds and risking their lives in floodwaters just for the thrill of it. It's all fun and games, but there are so many reasons why chasing a storm is a horrible idea. After Hurricane Irma approached the Caribbean, a 16-year-old surfer from Barbados headed out to the beach to ride the waves. He got caught by a closeout set and was sucked beneath the water. By the time rescuers were able to pull him from the crashing waves, he was unable to be resuscitated. Even if you don't head out to the ocean to have some fun, simply playing in floodwaters can be dangerous. The water from the storm can be contaminated with sewage and other chemicals. Hidden objects like sharp metals or broken glass could also be floating in the water. If you stand in floodwaters for too long, your legs can come in contact with sewage and boils and other rashes can develop on parts of your body. There's also a chance that floodwater can carry diseases such as cholera and yellow fever. So it's always best to take precautions. If a hurricane causes flooding in your neighborhood, don't head outside and dance in the rain. Be extra careful, make sure to keep your hands and body clean, and stay away from the floods to prevent infection. Which of these weird things that happened during a hurricane shocked you the most? We'd love to hear your answer down below. Thank you for watching this video. We hope you enjoyed it. Be sure to check out our friends at The Trendy to see more cool videos for teenagers.